My initial take is this is a typical bloom, unfortunately, for Lake Okeechobee at this time. It's probably going to get a little bit worse.
Florida's largest lake just dropped 4 feet and something strange started rising from the bottom. Satellite images caught 2 huge dark plumes spreading like ink across the water. Drone footage showed oily clouds shooting up from hidden pockets in the mud. Rivers running south and east turned coffee-colored almost overnight. State biologists watched in silence as the lake released 7 decades of buried trouble in a single weekend.
We've seen from early May until now. These satellite images from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration show how blue-green algae has developed across Lake Okeechobee.
9 million Floridians depend on this water for drinking, farming, and fishing. And the thing climbing out of the lakebed isn't done emerging yet. A routine drop that turned anything but routine. The operation itself looked simple on paper. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, working with the South Florida Water Management District, planned a controlled drawdown for the late 2024 season. The goal was straightforward. Lower the lake level to protect the Herbert Hoover Dike, the massive earthen wall that wraps around Lake Okeechobee for nearly 143 miles. The dike has been a worry for decades. A failure here wouldn't just flood farmland, it could wipe out entire towns sitting below the waterline. So crews opened the spillways. They sent water east through the St. Lucie Canal and west through the Caloosahatchee River. Day 1, things looked normal. Day 2, satellites flying overhead started picking up something odd. NOAA's imaging systems flagged 2 enormous dark trails running through the lake. These weren't shadows from clouds, they were physical plumes, dense and snaking, traveling across miles of open water.
Take a look. This is a satellite image that was taken of the lake by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. It shows blooms covering most of the west, northwest, and northern shorelines of the lake.
This is a key detail. The plumes didn't come from the inflows, they came from the lake bed itself. Drone teams launched from the shoreline confirmed it. Their cameras zoomed in on specific spots across the bottom and caught clouds of dark material shooting upward like underwater smokestacks. The footage looked like something out of a science fiction movie, but every frame was real. Biologists watching the feeds knew right away what was happening. The drawdown had stirred up something that should have stayed buried. Downstream, the changes hit fast. The Caloosahatchee, which runs west toward Fort Myers, turned brown within hours. The St. Lucie, flowing east toward Stewart, did the same. Locals along both rivers started posting pictures online. The water looked like strong coffee with foam on top. Some swore they could smell it from the boat ramps. Many are not seeing the truth here. The change in color wasn't sediment alone, it was the result of decades of stored chemicals finally getting their chance to move. When you drop a lake by 4 feet, you change the pressure on the bottom. You stir up layers that have been sitting still for years, and in Lake Okeechobee, those layers carry a load nobody really wants to deal with. The lake covers about 730 square miles. That makes it the largest freshwater lake in the southeastern United States. It sits in the middle of the state, fed by the Kissimmee River from the north and a web of canals from farms to the south and east. It's also shallow. The average depth is only about 9 feet, which means the bottom and the surface are never far apart. Stir the mud and the whole lake feels it. State biologists had warned about this for years. They knew the mud at the bottom of the Big O wasn't just dirt. It was a record of every chemical the watershed had ever sent down. Every fertilizer run, every cattle pasture runoff, every poorly treated wastewater discharge. All of it settled, layer by layer, into a soft black muck that now stretched across huge sections of the lake bed. When the drawdown started, that record came back to life. The lake just showed something it had been hiding since before most people watching were even born. When the lake turned bright green. Within weeks of the drawdown, the lake started changing color in a different way. The dark plumes faded, but in their place came something brighter and far more dangerous. Green mats of cyanobacteria spread across the surface. The main culprit was microcystis, a type of blue-green algae that thrives on the exact mix of phosphorus and nitrogen the lake was now serving up. Aerial surveys in 2025 captured the scale. More than 280 square miles of the lake showed visible bloom activity at the peak. That's bigger than the entire city of Chicago by land area. From above, the lake looked like it had been painted with thick green paint, broken only by swirls of darker open water. But here's the catch: these blooms don't stay still. The water flowing out east and west carried them straight into the estuaries. The St. Lucie estuary on the Atlantic side and the Caloosahatchee estuary on the Gulf side both took direct hits. And the chemistry of those estuaries makes things even worse. Saltwater stress eliminates the cyanobacteria, which then release their toxins. The main toxin is called microcystin, and it can damage the liver in humans and animals. Oyster beds in the St. Lucie estuary, which had been slowly recovering, got smothered under the green muck. Seagrass beds that manatees rely on for food lost light and died off in patches. Wildlife officials reported manatees moving farther in search of food, sometimes into areas where they faced new dangers from boat traffic. The 2025 bloom season became one of the longest on record for the region. What most people don't realize is how the toxin spreads beyond the water. Lab studies have shown microcystin can become airborne in tiny droplets when waves break or boats churn the surface. Coastal residents reported headaches, coughing, and skin irritation during the worst weeks of the bloom. Public health officials in Martin and Lee counties issued warnings advising people to stay out of affected waters and to keep pets away from canals and beaches. The economic damage piled up quickly. Marinas saw cancellations. Vacation rentals along the Treasure Coast and the Caloosahatchee dropped bookings as videos of the green water spread on social media. Commercial fishing operations had to move farther offshore to find clean water. Real estate listings near the worst affected canals sat on the market longer, and asking prices started to slide. And that was just the beginning of the financial fallout. The real kicker is what came next for the people who depend on this water for survival. Money, health, and the pressure on treatment plants. Lake Okeechobee isn't just a lake, it's the water supply hub for a huge chunk of South Florida. Regional water systems pull from it, store water in reservoirs connected to it, and rely on its outflows to recharge groundwater across the lower part of the state. Nearly 9 million people live in the regions that depend on this network. That's roughly the population of New Jersey, all relying on one lake to stay healthy. When the blooms hit and the toxins climbed, water treatment plants had to scramble. Standard treatment can't always remove microcystin completely. Plants near affected areas started using more activated carbon, more advanced filtration, and more chemical treatment to keep the toxin out of drinking water. All of that costs money. Estimates from regional utility commissions suggest treatment costs spiked by tens of millions of dollars during the worst bloom months of 2025. Then there's the agriculture problem. Farmers south of the lake, especially in the Everglades agricultural area, depend on consistent water releases. When the lake drops too low, irrigation suffers. When it's too high, fields flood. The balance is razor thin. The 2024 drawdown that started this whole cascade was itself a response to flood risk. Hurricane seasons keep pushing water levels up, forcing engineers to lower the lake faster than they'd like, which then stirs the bottom and triggers blooms. It's a loop with no easy exit. A lot of people are confused about why the state can't just stop the runoff at the source. The truth is, they've been trying. The Lake Okeechobee Basin Management Action Plan, updated in 2025, targets specific land use types known to leak the most phosphorus. Dairy operations have stricter rules. Sugar farms must use best management practices. Urban areas face new stormwater requirements. But the lake's problem isn't just current runoff. It's the 70-year load already in the mud. Cutting today's runoff to zero wouldn't fix the lake quickly. The internal load from the sediment would keep feeding blooms for years, maybe decades, even with a perfect external solution.
We're suffering through probably the worst blue-green algae bloom that we've ever seen in recent memory. So it's creating a variety of problems.
That's why scientists have started pushing for active treatment of the lakebed itself. There are still many rumors in the air, but what many can confirm is that without dealing with the muck directly, the lake won't recover in any timeline that matters to the people living around it. The next chapter is where the story takes a hard left turn. What Florida is doing right now to fight back. Restoration teams have moved from research to action faster in the last 2 years than at any point in the past 3 decades. The South Florida Water Management District, working with university researchers and federal agencies, has rolled out a handful of strategies aimed directly at the legacy phosphorus problem. The first is alum treatment. Aluminum sulfate, when added to water, binds with phosphorus and pulls it out of the column. The bound phosphorus drops to the bottom as a stable mineral that doesn't easily release back. Pilot programs in smaller Florida lakes have shown strong results. Plans are now in motion to test alum treatment in targeted hotspots within Lake Okeechobee, especially areas near the old agricultural inflows. The second strategy is direct sediment removal. It sounds simple, but the scale is massive. Specialized dredging equipment can pull up muck and pipe it to containment sites for processing. The phosphorus locked in the mud gets removed permanently, not just temporarily contained. Cost estimates for full lake-wide removal run into the billions, but officials are pushing for staged projects that target the worst spots first. The third strategy involves smarter water management. New computer models built with 2025 satellite data and historical bloom records can now forecast where chlorophyll A, a marker for algae, will spike based on weather and lake levels. Engineers use these forecasts to time water releases more carefully, trying to minimize how much nutrient-rich water flows into the estuaries during sensitive seasons. The lake just showed Florida what 70 years of neglect really looks like. The strange emergence isn't the end of the story, but the start of a harder test. Can we fix this in time? Drop a comment, hit like, and subscribe for more.